Bears fans, welcome back, Bear Down. And of course, we're with you on Real Talk Tuesday, episode 7, which is really episode 8, because we started a week before the new league year. But this is the 7th week of the league year, and probably the most important so far, because the NFL draft is upon us, 2 days away. And I could not be more excited. I know you guys are too. I have officially got my Bears NFL draft cap. It is here. I'm wearing it. I'm bearing down. I know you guys are bearing down too. Got a good show for you this morning. Of course, as always, recording it in the middle of the night on a special episode of Free Talk Tuesday because it's the Draft Edition. Now, we have absolutely slaughtered the draft. Mock drafts, discussing the draft, who we're taking, what we're doing, how we're doing it. Caleb Williams is here. If you haven't seen the Pivot episode of the podcast with Caleb Williams, I highly recommend you go and watch it. Well worth it. Ryan Clark did an excellent job. The whole cast did an excellent job. Well worth the watch. Caleb Williams is a young man. He's only 22 years old, I believe. Oh, man, I should know that. 22 years old. And he showed a lot of maturity on that episode, on that interview, on that hour-long episode of him discussing the reasons of why he did what he did, why he's doing what he's doing, his mentality, how he approaches the game, how he approaches life, how he doesn't want to settle, how he wants to stay in one place for 20 years and chase greatness, chase number 12, chase Tom Brady, which further reinstates my desire for him to be number 12, to beat number 12 with number 12. And more importantly, to beat the Packers in Lambeau Field once a year in Lambeau, once in Chicago, but twice a year, and tell them that he owns them and shove it down their throats wearing number 12. I can't wait for that. And I really, really, please, Caleb Williams, just be who you're supposed to be. Put the grind in, put the work in, make it happen, and be that guy, because it's here, and we're taking you. So just do it. We want it. We've never had this opportunity with 1-1. We want it. So if you haven't watched that episode, go watch it. Hour long, worth your time. 100% think it's fantastic. But let's get into our episode for today. It's here. The draft is here. Let's go over a couple of items first here, of news items that have been going on around the league. A couple of things I want to hit. Number one, the tampering. So we're going to hit a couple things here, and then today's focus, you'll see at the end of the episode, I'm going to focus on the center position today, because the more I analyze this, I don't think we're going to take a center in the draft. I want to get a second-round pick. I really, really, really want Zach Frazier. I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm going to go through some hypotheticals. I'm going to go through 5 potential undrafted free agents. I think we're past those days, but let's keep first thing first. Let's go over a couple of news items. If you guys haven't heard, the Falcons are expected to receive their discipline before the draft. At least that's the rumblings and the rumors. Things change on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. In fact, these are from earlier last night. The Falcons are expected to receive the worst for NFL's tampering punishment. For those who don't know, it was pretty blatantly obvious that they had tampered with Kirk Cousins. I mean, he freaking bought his house in Atlanta 2 weeks before the tampering period was open. On top of that, our former wonderful GM, Ryan Pace, was highly, I don't know the evidence, nobody knows the evidence, but highly subject to tampering with Darnell Mooney, who apparently he loves and wanted to bring to Atlanta as well. So those two things, but the bigger one is the quarterback position. Kirk Cousins was the number one sought after quarterback in this last free agency period. So you see some of the rumors. The bottom left there, Atlanta is expected to be found guilty of tampering with Kirk Cousins. The NFL is highly considering swapping Atlanta's first-round pick, number 8, with Minnesota, number 11, and docking Atlanta's second-round pick in 2025 per source. Who knows if that's accurate? Another one, look at Vicologist. Now, these aren't vetted to be completely accurate, guys. These are just the rumblings, and this is why I snipped some of these. I heard a rumbling that the NFL will punish the Falcons by tampering by taking their second-round pick, giving it to the Vikings. I'll tell you, that doesn't seem normal. Neither of those seem normal of swapping. If anything, I mean, Miami just lost their picks. They lost a first last year and a third this year. So, and if the league wants to send a message and say, look, Atlanta, you didn't get the message. We really hit hard on Miami for the multiple infractions they did. You clearly did this after we really tried to send a message. We're going to send a message to you. The best way to do that is just to flat out take away their first round pick this year. It hurts. It sucks. But they're very blatantly guilty of tampering. So I, obviously, as a Bears fan, that gets us excited because it puts us in a position to be one spot up, whatever that might be, wide receiver, defensive end. Dallas Turner's not off the board now. Nobody can trade up with 8 to snag Romo Dunze in front of us. Really, it leaves us in a great position. So obviously we're pulling for that. Sucks for Atlanta, but don't cheat. That's the pure solution to it. All right, next up, this is rolling around. From the Goat House, prospects that have been medically flagged by some teams. So these are just rumblings. Right now it's lying season. Sometimes teams are trying to increase certain players' stock, decrease certain players' stock. Who knows? But according to Albert Breer, multiple teams, GMs, or people in the war rooms are saying there is some medically flagged issues. Players that they aren't considering drafting because of these issues. One, Latu with his neck. Michael Penix Jr. with his knee and shoulder. Troy Fontenot with his knee. Ladd McConkey with his back and ankle. And then both stud LSU receivers, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., but minimal risk. So maybe teams won't be flagged on this. I don't know, but could it make Malik Neighbors fall to us at 9, even with a trade down to 11 or 12? Could he fall to us? I don't know. Things to keep an eye on. Ladd McConkey is someone I would love in the second round. If for some freak reason he dropped to 75 because of this, I don't see that happening. I'm just saying, things to keep an eye on. Latu, one of my favorites. Obviously, my favorite defensive end. I've made that very well known on this channel. So, something to keep an eye on. These things happen every year. Players they fall down the draft boards, and some players rise up the draft boards that you weren't expecting. So, just something to keep an eye on. And next, not insignificant, this is just one rendering of the domed stadium for Chicago, but it is official. And tomorrow, Wednesday, media advisory, Chicago Bears to announce plans for new stadium and additional green and open space on museum campus on Wednesday, April 24th. So the day before the draft. Big news for the Bears. It is happening on the lakefront. It's not happening at Arlington Heights. The Chicago Bears, in collaboration with city officials and stakeholders, will host a press conference on Wednesday, April 24th to announce their plans for a state-of-the-art, publicly owned, enclosed stadium. Enclosed, so it is domed. Publicly owned enclosed stadium along with additional green and open space with access to the lakefront for families and fans on the museum campus. That's exciting to me, to be able to take the kids down there, be able to spend it out there, having this big open green area for family. It's fun. I mean, this is good. This is a good thing for the Bears. How many years that will take to build? I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. We'll see how fast they can get plans underway and get it going. But very big news, very exciting. It is happening down on the lakefront, not at Arlington Heights, in Chicago. So big news for the Bears. All right, and then I have to bring this up for fun, okay? Because we're 2 days away. And you see the rumblings happening now. And I'm just going to, I see you looking, this was posted on one of my videos just yesterday. So I'm going to give you credit because you said, I'm going to scream it out. There's still some fans that feel this way. So I'm going to clarify. This is not me preaching it, guys. I'm the one who said it's never 100% because anything can happen on draft day. But I'm telling you, it's 99.99999999999% that we're taking Caleb Williams at this point. Everything relates to that. In fact, if you guys hadn't seen, it's come out that on the top 30 visits. So the Bears met with Caleb Williams at his pro day at USC. Okay. Keenan Allen was there. He was in attendance. If you guys didn't see that, go back and look. It was basically a formality at that point. Keenan Allen showed up with Bears gear right after they had traded for him. It was really cool. And shook hands, met with Caleb. They all went to dinner the day before his pro day. The Bears had a really good opportunity to sit down with him, get a feel for him. They were very impressed by him. One of the things Ryan Poles said, just me recalling off the top of my head, some of the things he said was They looked back and they said he never even looked at his phone. And I know that's not a big deal, but in today's world with social media and everything, he put it down. He put his focus and attention. He was very deliberate, is what they said, in his time with the Bears. So, big deal. But they'd already won him over. He'd already won them over, vice versa. Well, when the Bears brought him out for his top 30 visit, they'd already made the Justin Fields trade. Instead of the Bears brass saying, we have to have this time, they took it as an opportunity to send Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, I'm spacing the third one, but additional captains of the team to go to dinner with Caleb Williams to start building that bonding, to start building the cohesion of the team, and especially after DJ Moore during the season, which he was obviously just trying to give support to Justin Fields, give support to his quarterback, and say, hey, we got your back. We got you. You're one of my best friends. But in that moment, he said, who do they got coming out? 2 or 3 of them, talking about the quarterbacks, potential quarterbacks. None of them ain't better than Justin Fields. Now, I put that on this channel. He blatantly said it. He said none of them are better than Justin Fields. Well, what better way to start building that cohesion and the team concept and that chemistry than to send him to dinner with the captains of the team and start building that. That's the advantage when you have 1-1. You already know you're taking him. So they have it, they build it, get the repertoire going, and away we go. Well, I'm going to give you a moment here, 15 minutes of fame. I see you looking. Here's what he said. Trade down Colt conspiracy theory update. I see Adam Peters and Jaden Daniels trying to create a narrative that he isn't a lock at number 2. Now, if you guys don't remember, the Commanders brought all these quarterbacks at the same time in and basically did this ridiculous, have them all in at the same time to see who the alpha is, to see who separates themselves from the crop. Cream of the crop. It's ridiculous. It sounds like really a crap show in Washington. So the Peters has a reasonable explanation of why he felt compelled to give Poles the dreaded Mike Ditka, Ricky Williams type of offer that they themselves couldn't refuse back in the day. All right? So Adam Peters can say his plans have changed when they lost confidence Jaden wouldn't try to Eli his way to the Raiders, and obviously preferred Caleb the whole time. So the disastrous 30 for 30 speed dating at Topgolf was a blessing in disguise. Now, I am not making fun of you, I see you looking, because there's a lot of fans that still feel this way. So let me finish it out here. All this would get rid of the little voice in my head which questions why Poles said more than once that draft criticisms don't matter as long as you get it right, which makes no sense if he were to take consensus generational picks like Caleb, then insert name here, Rome, Alt, etc. But if he takes the future first haul with a boatload of top 100 picks this year in a clearly top-heavy draft, then Shazam! It all makes sense in the mind of the delusional at least. Probably grasping at straws as the moment of truth quickly approaches, but it will be documented right here from my victory parade, which will be getting rained on by the many warm tears of all the Caps screaming out their what could have beens as my float passes them by. I love this post. Guys, this is the type of stuff that I eat up. It's fun because you have to be able to take it lightly. You have to be able to enjoy this time of year. You have to be able to enjoy what we're going through because it's fun. It's historic. We're never going to have that number 1 pick again. At least I hope not in my lifetime. Number 1 and number 9 should set us up, and we should be a franchise on the rise. But just to bring it back, a flashback, here's a slide from one of my previous videos, a shocking draft day trade. The Chicago Bears successfully trade down from 1-1 to 1-2 with the Washington Commanders. The Bears trade 1-1 for 1-2, 236, 240, and 2 future second-round picks. That is a haul. And my friend, I see you looking. If it happens, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be shocked. I'm actually going to be a little disappointed because I have come so far around on Caleb Williams now. I'll tell you, I'm becoming a fan of his. And these fingernails, nope, they're not painted yet. You can document and see. Fingernails not painted yet. They will be on draft night. My little girls, I've talked to them a couple times. They're going to give Daddy a manicure on Wednesday, and it'll be ready for Thursday. I'm not saying it's going to be glamorous. It's not going to be the prettiest nail job in the world. I don't have Caleb Williams' mom as a nail beautician, but my little 7-year-old and my almost 3-year-old are going to do their darndest to make Daddy's fingernails draft day ready for Caleb Williams to be selected number 1 overall. If this draft day trade happens, I'm going to be sitting there with painted fingernails in shock that the Bears pulled a 180 on the last minute. So full-fledged, I'm going to give you some credit. I see you looking. You're hanging on there. You hang on to that thread, buddy. You hang on to that 0.001% because if it happens, you guys saw it right here. He posted it. You enjoy your parade, my friend. All right, so let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this draft. It's happening, guys, and here's the top 30 visits from the Bears again. And Swifty and I yesterday created a little video for our takes on the draft and where it's coming. I'll try not to hit too many of the things we hit in there. It's going to be on his channel today, so go over there and check it out. Good little conversation with Swifty. I always like yucking it up with him. Really good guy to chat with, very knowledgeable, insightful, and it's just fun to chat with him. So a good guy that I like doing podcasts with a lot. You guys know Swifty. Every one of you knows Swifty. So here is our top 30s at 1 and 9, Caleb Williams, and then the other ones that are right in this range of the first round. Could we trade back? Absolutely. You see all those defensive ends, Latu, Chop Robinson, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse. You see possibility of Byron Murphy, even J.C. Latham, Jackson Powers Johnson. In the second round, Zach Frazier, Graham Barton, Ladd McConkey, who I just showed had the injury issue, Ben Sennett, who I like a lot. Anyways, there's a lot of potential players here. We're not going to go into a full-on mock, but this is kind of how I feel it's going to lay out at this point. This is what I think is the most realistic thing. One singular trade back from 9 to 13 for the Raiders to come up and get a quarterback. And with that, a very fair, I like projecting getting a second rounder, but it's not as realistic as we would hope. I hope the Bears can extract that. That would be wonderful. Then we can hit that center position. But I don't see the center position being hit, which is why I'm going to focus a little bit as my first round of undrafted free agents that I'm going to focus on the center position. Now, I know, guys, we've gone through the Doug Kramer thing, late round pick, didn't pan out. All of us kind of wanted that to work out. But hear me out. We're just going to go over some of it. So in this scenario, we're not going to do a full-on mock draft, but here's kind of how I see it at this point. I really do see Caleb Williams 1-1. I like Latu. I probably should trade this for Jared Verse because the safer bet is probably Jared Verse. With Latu's medicals, we don't know how the Bears have viewed those. If they're clean on them, if they're happy with them, then this is a slam dunk Latu. If not, Jared Verse would be more of the pick. So we'll see what happens on draft night. I'm hoping for Latu. I'm not upset at all with Jared Verse. In fact, I'm very happy with it. But then we get to the third round. Kieran Amagaji, offensive tackle out of Yale. I like him a lot. He may go sooner than this, but I think this is where we're keying in on that position. With the singular trade back, we can then pick up Brendan Rice, who has NFL blood inside of him with one of the greatest receivers in history with his dad, Jerry Rice. Really had a strong connection with Caleb Williams. Good X receiver that just needs to hone in some skills. And I think with Chris Beatty and with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore can really, really teach him how to take that next step in the NFL. What better situation for someone who has wonderful heritage in the league and natural ability and size and so much going for him, but just needs to take the next step. So I like that one. Then Mason Smith is someone I love that's dropped into the fourth round. Get a defensive tackle there. And then A.J. Barner, tight end 3, with that last little sweetener that we get from the Raiders. Instead of getting a second round, we get a third and a sixth. They've got a lot of late round picks. So I see this being a realistic take of what could happen in this draft. And if you look at our draft needs, that really attacks a lot of them. So quarterback Caleb Williams, wide receiver Brennan Rice, defensive interior Mason Smith, offensive tackle Kieran Amagaji, defensive end with Jared Verse or Latu. Tight end 3 would be A.J. Barner. What you see that's missing is the interior offensive line, guard and center. So we're still lacking some depth there. We could even pick up a wide receiver in undrafted free agency as well. But I chose not to go for offensive tackle and wide receiver today with my undrafted free agency. I chose to go with the center position because with this chart, you can see our swing tackle, the big X there, would be relieved. But then Coleman Shelton's on a 1-year deal. Ryan Bates is not starting caliber, in my opinion, but he's a great backup for guard and center. So he fills the need that we didn't have filled last year. And getting a rookie to come in and compete would be great to see what we can do. Doug Kramer has not panned out. So we have a backup guard need. So I'm going to focus on interior offensive line with center and possible guards and undrafted free agency just outside of where it's projected to be in this year's draft. But first, let's go back and do a quick look just so you guys can see of the top 3 that if we do land a second rounder, could be there. Now, the highest projected one, according to most places, is Graham Barton. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's Jackson Powers Johnson, as you guys well know. But Graham Barton, 9.99 RAS score, 6'5", 313 pounds, very quick for his size, long arms, 32.875. Not long for a tackle, but long for a center and a guard. And he's had very good years there at Duke. All right, so next up would be Zach Frazier. His RAS score wasn't as good, but I think some of those things are overlooked by the fact that he was listed as a guard here and not a center. His height is just fine for a center, 6'2", but they gave him a 2.11 score there. I think that was really discrediting. His broad jump was short, but Zach Frazier to me is a home run. He's a slam dunk, and if we were to pick up Zach Frazier in the second round, I'm more than thrilled. And then, of course, there is Jackson Powers Johnson, who is my favorite, everyone's favorite. And same thing, 6'3", listed as a guard. I don't know why they do that, but sack, hit, and hurry between plays, 213.3 over a 2-year period, which is absolutely ridiculous. There's not enough I can say about Jackson Powers Johnson. He would be, to me, one of the surprise picks the Bears take that I would just be absolutely thrilled with. Protect Caleb Williams. They could be together for the next 5 years at least, protecting him, building repertoire. I mean, that's the connection on every single play. Those are the 2 that would touch the ball every single time, no matter what. Center and quarterback. So what better situation to have than to have him come in on day one, come in together. He could learn behind Coleman Shelton, but really he would be a day one starter if we take Jackson Powers Johnson. So there's the 3 of those guys lined up with their measurables, their height, weight, sack, hit, hurry. That's my way of saying plays between a pressure. And this is just off of last year. So Jackson Powers Johnson only had one pressure the entire year. And it was the weakest variety, not a sack or a hit. It was just a hurry. 458 snaps, pass blocking snaps, and only 1 pressure allowed. Pass blocking grade 90.4, run blocking grade 84.5. He is in a class of his own. I absolutely love Jackson Powers Johnson. I just don't see it happening. I don't see with the Bears' needs. With how much need we have at defensive end, with how much need we have at wide receiver, I just don't see it happening. I wish there was a way. I hope there's some kind of freak way that we can trade with Minnesota and get both 11 and 23. That's wishful thinking. It's not going to happen. It's a dream. And if it happens, I'll be freaking out because we can get Caleb Williams, we can get Jared Verse, and we could get Jackson Powers Johnson in the first round. That would be crazy. And then last but not least, this is something I've been holding out for as well. I suggested this a couple months ago, but we don't know, and I looked before this video, we don't know how Connor Williams is healing. Obviously, they talked about his injury being so bad with the ACL injury that it could medically retire him. He has no desire to medically retire. He's fighting it. You look below here. Frank Ragnow was number 1 center in the league last year, ranked first. Run block, pass block grades, amazing. His plays between sack, hit, and hurry. So once every 32 plays, he allows a pressure. Connor Williams once every 46 plays, which is unheard of. Didn't have a full season, though, with the injury. Connor Williams is just absolutely, bar none, who I would want to see be a Chicago Bear. But we don't know with those injuries, and is really Ryan Poles going to take a risk on that? Well, no, obviously not until the medicals are cleared. They're going to have full medicals and full evaluation before they would sign him. But here was the idea I proposed a while ago. He's only 26 years old, so he has plenty of time to come back. But if the Bears signed him on a discount, got him for $6 million this year, and then signed him for 3 more years at $13 million, maybe even less than that, depending on how the injury is, and maybe some of it conditional, and it's got to have certain restrictions applied to it. I don't know. It's got to be worth it for him to sign, but it's got to be worth it for the Bears too. But there is Frank Ragnow, Connor Williams, Coleman Shelton, and Ryan Bates below them. You can see there's a clear difference between these level of guys and Connor Williams. So Connor Williams would be a slam dunk in free agency. But if that doesn't happen, or even if it does happen, we won't know until midway through the season because he's projected to miss like the first 9 to 10, possibly more weeks of the season, which is why we signed him to $6 million this first year. And this takes place. We didn't fill that backup center position to learn underneath. So let's look at the top potential undrafted free agents in this year's class. Number one, and he's someone who's actually coming up the boards, and he's borderline draftable now. Now, it's kind of stupid to say those things because we don't know where teams have these guys listed on their boards. But out of North Carolina State, so it's not a chump school, but look at the top left there. These are his PFF grades over the last 5 years. So most of these guys have had full 5-year careers. They're trying to increase their stock. But you can see he's become more of a well-rounded player this last year. Only 11 pressures, so 31.4 sack hits or hurry, pressures between plays, and a pretty equal pass blocking, run blocking grade. So if he doesn't get drafted, this is someone. Now, every year, right after the draft finishes, you're going to see that very first night, teams are watching these players at the end of their boards. They're going to be in contact with their reps, with their agents immediately. Hey, we want you to come to Chicago. We have a long-term plan. We want to see if you can compete. Come in there, make the 53-man, learn and develop and become our starter long-term. These guys, this is a perfect place. You don't think some of these guys are looking at Chicago and saying they need a center? These guys will be fighting to come here. Now, Dylan McMahon is someone, he's the first one on the list. He could potentially go in the 7th round. And maybe someone loves him even more than that. But right now where they're projecting, these are the undrafted free agents. So he's just outside of the range of being drafted. 6'3", 299 pounds, vertical, broad, everything stacked. 9.81 RAS score. So the kid is a freak athlete. I'm going to tell you, I haven't watched tape on any of these guys. I'm just pulling up guys that look on paper like someone I would like the Bears to take a shot on and say, hey, because right after the draft is over with, I think right now we have around 60-something under contract. Right after the draft is over with, we'll have right around 70. We're going to fill out the roster to 90-man roster, okay, when we get to camp. So the Bears are going to sign several teams. Every team is going to draft undrafted free agents right after the draft ends. And I think center is going to be that position that the Bears really key in on. Center, linebacker is always one of the first ones. Defensive backs, tackles. You're going to see all these, but I'm going to be watching who the centers they take are. So Dylan McMahon is the first one to look for on the list. Really solid-looking player, young, but could develop very well. I mean, you can say that about all these guys. And next is going to be an offensive guard, interior offensive lineman that worked with Caleb Williams. Now, not every one of those 5 years is with USC. You see top left, but always been a solid pass-blocking defender. Struggles in the run block a little bit, but for USC's weaknesses, he clearly wasn't the big weakness this last year. He did allow 17 pressures and 4 of those sacks, so he had a little off year. I believe he was at Washington or Washington State before he transferred to USC. I should know that, but I don't. It's one of those two. But he transferred from Pac-12 school to Pac-12 school. Had a decent year this year. He wasn't the big reason for USC having struggles on the offensive line, but he did a decent job. 75.4 pass block grade, 25.5 plays between a pressure allowed. You can see his pass blocking grade was 79% with NFL Draft Buzz. Run blocking grade 66%. 6'4", 306 pounds, but very, very athletic. All these guys are running right around 5 flat on the 40-yard dash. Elite vertical, elite shuttle, 9.92 RAS score. You're going to notice a theme with this. I selected the guys that had the highest RAS scores, the freak athletes on this list, because those are guys that Ryan Poles is going to go after, and maybe that's why some of these guys might get drafted late round. But if they don't, these are guys that teams are going to be targeting, and can the Bears select and snag 1 or 2 of them? Day one, I would like to see him compete with Ja'Tyre Carter, absolutely. Well, Ja'Tyre Carter probably won't even make the team at this point, but be able to compete for that 4th guard position, whoever ends up competing there behind Ryan Bates. There's going to be someone, and we've got to snag someone, so here's a couple options for us. All right, next up on the interior offensive line again, who's played a little bit of center, mostly guard, but you can see his run blocking grade a lot more solid. Pass blocking grade, I don't know why it's come down a little bit each year. That's a little bit concerning, but he is a freak athlete as well. 9.84 on the RAS score, 6'5", 300 pounds, 5 flat on the 40-yard dash, 33.5 vert. His pass blocking and his run blocking, both pretty solid, but he came from a small school in Holy Cross. So again, how much can you gauge that? We have a great history with Braxton Jones. Are these guys scouting right now C.J. Hansen from Holy Cross? I don't know. The only way to know is when we sign those guys after the draft. And, these guys get to choose where they end up going when you sign as an undrafted free agent. So whether the Bears get him or not is not completely up to the Bears. These guys are going to have to agree where they want to come play. But if you see the Bears situation with, a need at depth and not really long-term contracts, this is a great place to come and compete and try to give yourself a name, especially with a ascending team. So of all these positions, I think players would love to come to the Bears and compete to be on the interior offensive line, especially center and guard positions. All right, next up, Nick Gargiulo. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm going to be honest. Run blocking concerns me quite a bit this last year. You can see it was better in previous years, but he comes from a big school from South Carolina. So it's not like he came from chump change. He was protecting Spencer Rattler this year. Pass blocking grade was very solid. A little bit slower than the other guys, but that doesn't necessarily matter. His 3-cone is solid, so he's agile. He can move around quite a bit. Vertical was good. But good size, 6'5", 318 pounds. That's very solid for his interior offensive line and for center. And he is listed as a center. I think he could be versatile. In fact, if you look at his PFF, he did go back and forth between center and guard quite a bit. Good arm length, 9.47 RAS score, 26 pressures this last year. But you can see double the workload of the year before, but more than almost 4 times as many pressures. What's the reasoning for that? I don't know. That's something for the Bears to look into, but only 20 plays between pressures. That's a little concerning, but very, very solid-looking player. High RAS score with a great size for the NFL. So this would be number 4 on my list of undrafted free agents, potential for the Bears to bring in. And then 5th, last but not least, is probably the most inconsistent guy. Someone that would need a lot of work, but again, good size. 6'3", 308 pounds, center for Duke, Jacob Monk. Arm length is solid. His height's good for a center. Good weight, good vert, good 40-yard dash. All these guys read around 5 seconds, which is very quick for these big boys, these offensive linemen. Pass blocking and run blocking right there in the 60s. So not my priority, but if we grab him, I'm going to be excited to see what he can do to compete. Will they, day one, beat out Doug Kramer? I don't know. In fact, those that don't remember, Doug Kramer was actually a very high prospect, a local prospect from Illinois, and he had a 8.48 RAS score. So he was a very good athlete as well. But all 4 of these guys could be great options or a couple of them could be great options at center and guard to be able to bring in to compete as our undrafted free agents. Here's a look again at the depth chart for the Bears offensive line. Obviously, Braxton Jones left tackle. With my proposal, Kieran Amajabi would come in as the swing tackle, possibly beat him out by the end of the year. But I think Braxton Jones is very motivated. And then you got Ryan Bates really as the backup guard center option for both of those at this point. Coleman Shelton center, Tevin Jenkins and Nate Davis as guards. Darnell Wright as the right tackle. And then Matt Pryor and Jake Curahan really duking it out for that tackle 4 position at this point. One of them probably a cut candidate. With these guys on the bottom, really my guys that are expendable, Larry Borum, Jerome Carvin, who we just signed as a futures contract, Bill Murray, Doug Kramer, Tyree Carter, and Aviante Collins. As we go into camp, not all these guys are going to make the team, guys. I mean, these are really bodies right now to fill for camp. That's where we stand. And then as you look at the offensive playmakers, as you have Brennan Rice at wide receiver as the X receiver, and then you have A.J. Barner as tight end 3, that really fills out the wide receiver, running back, tight end, quarterback room. That's all filled out for the Bears at this point. And then getting Jared Verse or Leatu Latu. And Mason Smith really fills out the defensive line. I didn't do a defensive back one. I will do that one soon. It's just that's not a pressing need for us. Our linebacker core is very solid. Our defensive backs are very solid. We don't really have any place of need. I don't see us drafting any of those, even though we did bring in some top 30 visits for the corners, for some safeties. I think that's more due diligence than anything if we do end up getting a haul of picks. What are the odds of us trading back 15 different times? I don't know. We've done a bunch of mock drafts. I'm not going to make this one about doing more and more mock drafts. In fact, I'm trying to intentionally focus Free Talk Tuesday this week away from doing more mock drafts. We can do another video of final day mock drafts. In fact, we might run a fan-led mock draft. Maybe I'll do that tonight. Maybe we'll do that. I think that might be kind of fun just for you guys to do some craziness. We can create our own craziness. But I don't want to do the mock drafts right now. I just want to show where this team could be and then some of those potential undrafted free agents. As we get right up to the draft, I have plans to do all the positions, a few of the undrafted free agents. I'm going to try to get that one out. I'm really running short on time. Ran out of a lot of time with some family things this last weekend. But I appreciate you guys' patience. We're here. This is draft week. And then as the draft happens, you guys know I'm going live on draft night on the first night. It's going to be an hour before the draft happens. So you see that already scheduled if you want to look for it. I am going live for that entire. I've got a couple of guests coming on. Shorty from the Bears Country Podcast is coming on. I really enjoy his humor, so he's going to be a fun guest to have on the show. And then a couple tentatives, so I'm not going to list them right now, but a couple tentatives. And then Swifty is going to come on between the 1st and 9th picks to give some input, to really just chop it up and have some fun. It's going to be a looser atmosphere. It's going to be a lot of fun for the draft. So please come and pop in at least for a little bit. Enjoy the reactions. Enjoy what we come up with for the draft. I do have some player personnel files that I'm going to share as people are drafted. You'll see the excitement we have. It's going to be historic. It's something I'm never going to forget. That's why I do want to go live. So I have it recorded. So I have it right here in our databases that this is what happened on April 25th, 2024, the day the franchise changed forever. Got our quarterback that lasted more than his first rookie contract. Got a, like he said, 20 years in one place. I would love to have that happen, to be able to have Caleb Williams for 20 years. And I guess, man, we have time for it, though. I didn't have that. This was going to be a shorter Free Talk Tuesday, and we're still decently there. I like to keep them between 30 and 45 minutes. But I wasn't going to go deep on this today, but I'm just going to talk for a minute. Most of you guys know I was one that had a hard time coming around to Caleb Williams. I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. And, I still wish him the very best in Pittsburgh. I think he has everything in him to be a Super Bowl contending, possibly winning quarterback in the NFL. Anybody who denies that really isn't being honest, because he has potential. And I was one who really pointed out with my stats and analysis how much he was ascending and how much he was improving every year. But there is a clock on these things, and teams have to go through their cycles of not just quarterback, but developing an entire team and the youth of it. And really it came down to that quarterback clock. We've seen that. And these people who were saying Ryan Poles was planning this out since last year, I can't with some of you. I can't. I'm not going to go there. It's not true. Number one, you do due diligence all the time. Contingency scenarios, contingency planning. That's what you do with any professional organization. So no, I don't think this was pre-planned years in advance. In fact, I think the reason that things happened the way they did is because they were so unsettled on it, because they were so having such a difficult time with it, and that's why Ryan Poles went to Matt Eberflus's house to make the call to Justin Fields, as they finally came to it and said, okay, this is what we're doing. We're doing it. We're moving forward with it. Let's make it happen together. It didn't have to do with Justin Fields. It had to do more, or with Caleb Williams even, it had to do more with that quarterback clock. And then they made the decision after that to go with Caleb Williams. Now, everything since then is something I take very seriously, and I put time and devotion into it. I have watched Caleb Williams tape, not just his highlight reels, over and over and over again, religiously, fanatically. There's some things I didn't like. There's a lot of things I didn't like. There's a lot of things I loved. And I do love how quickly he gets the ball out. And then I watch other places come up with, and I saw it. Swifty even did a video on it, but I saw it in multiple places where Caleb Williams at his time in USC threw 199 attempts on 3rd and 4th down with 0 interceptions. That is clutch. That is playmaker. That is elite. That is generational. Now, I'm still the type that needs to be proven in September through January that he was the right decision. I have QB PTSD. I truly do. I worry about any quarterback we take, which is why I wanted the haul more than just Caleb Williams. And yeah, at times I did make it personal because more than anything, I really wanted Marvin Harrison Jr. and I wanted that trade down haul. We saw what we got for the haul last year. It was neat, in my opinion, to be able to take that haul again and to be able to take one of these other, because this isn't a scrub quarterback class. This, to me, compares to the 2020 to 2021 class. It's going to be somewhere in between there. And some of you guys can mock the 2021 class, but the reality is a couple of those quarterbacks really got a shoddy situation. And I don't know if anybody didn't see the news. Zach Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos for a very late round draft swap with the Broncos. I think it's great for an opportunity for Zach Wilson. And he's not a garbage quarterback. Now, I'm a BYU fan, so I watched him. I thought he was overdrafted on draft day. He should have never gone number 2 overall. I thought it should have been switched between Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. Now, he's going to go down in the Hall of Fame, Zach Wilson, because of that one throw at his pro day. He'll go down into the pro day Hall of Fame. So, yeah, that's a cheeky joke, but and protect your moms. But Zach Wilson now has a chance in Denver to be able to revitalize himself, and I hope he takes advantage of it. Mac Jones is going to be competing in Jacksonville. He's not really competing. He's the backup to Trevor Lawrence, but he gets a chance again. Justin Fields is in Pittsburgh. He gets a chance again. But the 2020 class, I think, is more like this class. So I kind of hoped we would take the haul and pick, Joe Burrow from that class as our quarterback. There were so many good ones that we could take one and really build the rest of the team. Now, Ryan Poles has said that he was a part of picking Pat Mahomes. And he's trying to change the culture here. He's trying to change the past. He's made that comment a couple times that he's trying to break free from that he's kind of being held down by that, even on Pat McAfee's show. I don't know if you saw that. But he said, we're trying to change that. But certain people are still trying to make it sound like the Bears are a place where quarterbacks go to die. And that's not reality, because this is a whole new regime, whole new coaching staff, whole new operation that's running in Chicago. So this is the beginning of a new era. This is the new era of the Chicago Bears. The old Bears are gone officially with this draft class. So the point of this, if anybody's hanging on to the Justin Fields thing, now's the time to let it go. I get Caleb Williams is different, but when I watched that Pivot podcast, when I watched him get interviewed, there is a young man where you learned a ton about him in one interview. And he was open and he was raw in a way that I truly appreciated. Now, not everything he said was glamorous, but I think it was authentic. And I really, really respect the fact that he's trying to be out there and open, but also genuine and true to himself. I think he knows more than anybody the pressure that's being placed on him. And I think the biggest thing I worried about was, would he be able to handle that pressure in Chicago's market and succeed? And I think he has what it takes. You might disagree. You might agree. I don't know. That's not the basis of that, but I think it's time to start coming around. Maybe it'll take some of you into the season. Maybe it'll take his first 4-touchdown game. Maybe it'll take his first 300 passing yard game. Maybe it'll take half a season where we've gone, I don't know, let's be fair, 5-3 for the first half of the season and say, okay, I can see this working. Maybe it'll take beating the Packers for the first time. But be open to it, because I think it really is going to be more memorable and more enjoyable if you're on board with it. I'm not saying you have to be all in. I'm not saying you have to go buy his jersey. I'm not buying any quarterback's jersey anymore until they get that second contract. I'm going to be wearing either my Darnell Wright or my DJ Moore jersey on draft night. Darnell Wright is my number from high school. I was a defensive end. Darnell Wright, 58, is my number. So I got his last year. I will probably buy a jersey from this year as well. I want Montez Sweat's jersey, I think, the most. So I'll probably buy Montez Sweat's jersey next. Just depending, if we draft Leatu Latu, I very legitimately could buy Leatu Latu's jersey on draft night. But it's going to be more enjoyable to go through this ride if you give it a shot. more than anything. You don't have to buy in day one, but give it a shot. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. I appreciate all of you tuning in. It's fun. We're 2 days away. It's here. Come join me if you can. The video notification is out there. If you click on my videos, you'll be able to find it. Hit the notify button so you can be notified when it starts. I'm going to start an hour early. And I'm going to have Shorty on pretty shortly after that. I'm going to go over some stuff with the draft. We'll go over some hype of it. And then as it happens, right here, we're going to be part of it. So come and join us. Then we'll have Swifty on shortly after that first overall pick. And there's 10 minutes between picks. So we'll be on for a little bit with you guys. We'll be on live. We'll do some Q&A. We'll have some excitement for it. Come and join us. Free Talk Tuesday, episode 7. Appreciate you guys being here. If you haven't hit the like button, please do so. And until next time, of course, as always, continue to bear down.